Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Data You Can Bet On. Today, we're going to show you how to perform market analysis based on previous competitions, so you could predict trends, learn from the best strategies, and be prepared for the upcoming exciting tournament, World Cup 2022. We are very excited to be with you today, and we have a very talented group of experts speaking. So I'm Lee, a client success analyst. I come from business consultancy and data analysis background. I'm working with global gaming and sport betting companies, consulting their marketing departments, creating strategic and tactic reports so they can essentially meet their KPIs. We have another amazing Lee with us today. Lee, the stage is yours.
Hi, my name is also Lee. First of all, I'm a sports freak, and mainly football. So every time I'm the World Cup is approaching, having real serious concerns regarding my marriage. So I hope that I would pass it calmly. And in Similarweb, I'm managing one of the account management team that specializes in gaming and gambling. And I will pass to Liana so she can introduce herself as well.
So hi guys, I'm Liana, not another Lee. So I hope we won't get you too confused. I'm also a client success analyst at Similarweb, and I'm specialized in SEO and user monetization. Also, prior to Similarweb, I worked in the gaming industry, so have expertise in that industry as well, and really warmly welcome you all. A few words about Similarweb, in case of those who are not that familiar. We're a marketing intelligence solution that essentially allows you to see how your market is performing, how your competition is performing, and most importantly, how you are doing against that competition. Going from high-level data, industry trends that we will shortly start with, and then drilling down into the very specific channels and to very granular analysis on which keywords have been driving traffic, which affiliates are driving traffic, etc. So we're really excited to show you that data today. And what do we have in store today? Essentially, World Cup 2022 is just around the corner. Now, in order to get you guys prepped the best way possible, we chose a competition that was the most competile to really do that analysis and really do those predictions for the upcoming World Cup. And that's why we chose the Euro 2020. As we all know, it took place in 21 last year due to Corona and some changes. And what we're showing you today is really a full analysis on what happened during Euro 2020 last year, starting from the global traffic trends, how the entire industry was performing, who were the top websites that succeeded in acquiring traffic, and then we'll drill down specifically to the UK market, seeing how those big players were acquiring traffic in that very granular level. We'll go on to some next steps, and then of course Q&A. So for any questions, please drop them down in the chat box, and we'll make sure to tackle them either during the call or for sure at the end of the call.
Okay. So quick explanation about what we did. So basically, we took the word bet in many different languages and created a custom category of a lot of different sports betting websites, and then analyzed them throughout the period of the Euro. We wanted an occasion that actually simulate as much as we can the World Cup. Let's be honest, the World Cup is the holy grail of every football, and by the way, in my opinion, every sports tournament in the world. But the closest thing that we can find was the Euro 2020, which Diana also mentioned, actually took place at 2021. The good thing is that during Euro 2020, we also had the Copa America that was held in Brazil. So taking those two competitions, basically Euro 2021 and Copa America 2021, is, and if you want to let's say, compare it to the World Cup, basically the World Cup is that event on steroids. So what we will do now is basically analyze the high-level things that happened, the people trend and people, how they went into gambling websites, and then we will drill down to understand how those gambling websites actually took the market share. So, Diana, can you please press? So what we just did today is that we took the period of April 1st and up to the end of July of 2021, and we tracked the amount of visits that those websites actually got. So if you would look, the first peak is at the 10th of April, and we checked the actual event that happened there, and there was a lot of different matches, but the one that really stood out, and Real Madrid versus Barcelona, that was the match that really attracted a lot of interest throughout the world. And then we can see the big peak that we see there that brought a lot of traffic. Another peak that we can see is that I think it's the 29th of May, which was the Champions League final. And we know that that game always attracts a lot of different people to gamble, basically. The next period of time that we would like to focus on is June 11th to July 11th. So basically, that is the period of the Euro 2020. And we will try to explain how people actually behave during that time. And we can expect a similar behavior when we go to the World Cup, okay? Because basically, those tournaments are built the same, okay? So
we're basically looking at the period from El Clasico down to the Euro. So in Similarweb, we're able to spot industry trends worldwide so that you can understand how your own industry is performing and how you benchmark against it. Now, Lee, as our sport expert, would you expect similar traffic volume for World Cup?
I expect bigger traffic volumes, but similar behavior. So as I said, the World Cup is the holy grail of the sports event, specifically the football event, okay? Like the whole world is waiting for it. They are preparing for it for 4 years. There's a lot of hype in every country that actually qualified. And by the way, even countries that haven't qualified, there is a lot of hype around it. So when we think about it, like everybody's preparing for that moment in the past 4 years, and now that moment has come. So there is a big hype. If I need to think about it, that should be the same behavior, but a lot bigger. Okay, so if we can just press to the next slide, please. So we actually took the period of the World, sorry, not of the World Cup, of the Euro 2021 and the Copa America, and we want to explain a bit about the peaks and the trends that we had throughout the tournament. So as you know, every tournament starts with the group stage, okay? In the group stage, basically, we can see that the start of the matches, as you can see, it's the 11th of June. We can see a peak, and we can see the first peak. This is the first enthusiasm. First games are starting to be played. A lot of action is basically happening in that specific website. And once the tournament starts, we see a bit of decrease. And the next hype will come at the end of match day 2. Then we are starting to understand the picture. We're starting to understand who is going to qualify for the next stage. We are also starting to see the favorites, who is going to win the tournament. And we can see another big peak there that people go into those gambling websites and actually starting to place different type of bets. The next peak is actually after the group stage is finished and the last 16 phase is starting. So again, when each stage is starting, we can see a big peak, because let's be honest, they can bet on all the games that we have, like all the 8 games, basically. That's 16 teams. It's another 8 games. So it starts with a big peak. You can bet on all the 8 games, and as the time go forward, they have less and less games, so we can see a bit of decrease going forward. Same thing is going to happen in the quarterfinal. Important to say, we just marked the Euro phases in here. I will also explain how the Copa America also fits in during that time, but sometimes Copa America can also affect that specific chart. So same goes in the quarterfinal and also in the semifinal, okay? And something that is really, really interesting, so we can see again, the quarterfinal, we can see that peak and then it goes down. Same goes in the semifinal. It's basically 2 games and we can see 2 different peaks there. By the way, something that we need to understand, that the semifinal took place in England. England was one of the best market for gambling, and England had an amazing tournament. At least they thought it's going to come home until the final. It didn't in the end, but it's actually brought a lot of volume to those specific websites. And the reason that the second semifinal is actually bigger than the first peak there is because England played that semifinal. Okay, and it creates huge amount of interest throughout the kingdom, basically. And then we will go to the finals. And if you will see the final, we marked it as 2 finals just because there was 2 amazing final for the gambling industry there. And let me just quickly explain. The 10th was the Copa America final, held in Brazil. We had a classical game there. Brazil played Argentina. You cannot expect a better final for those specific websites. And we can also see that in the 11th of July, we got England in the final, and the final was held in Wembley and create huge amount of interest. We all know how it ended. I hope that you guys know as well. If not, we can take it offline. But it did create huge amount of interest, and we can see the peak that they had just for one game. Okay.
It's important to know historical data available in the platform up to the last 37 months. Now, viewing a wider period of historical data allows you to perform deeper analysis and pinpoint successful tactics from other past events, not just this event.
Exactly. I'm muted, sorry. So let's be honest, when we talk about sports events, basically, a lot of the time it's seasonal sport events. We got the Super Bowl in February, we got the Champions League final in May, we got the leagues that are running throughout the time. And as we saw before, there's Real Madrid and Barcelona every year, a few times. So seasonal events happens all the time. By the way, it doesn't have to be football. It can be horse racing, and it can be like the 4 majors in tennis. It can be a lot of different things. So the ability to really understand what worked in the past can really help you to understand what will work in the future as well.
Lee, we've got a great question here from the audiences. So thank you, first of all, for submitting, and feel free to bring those on as we go on. So our question here is, how will this behavior translate to the African market?
Okay, first of all, it's an amazing question. So as we said before, we took a specific type of gambling website and we translated the word bet to the different languages. So we can also do an analysis for the African market. By the way, talk to your sales manager, talk to your account manager. I will happily jump on any call and do the analysis with you guys to understand how you can win your local market. But at the end of the day, the World Cup is a world event. Okay, guys? So it basically brings a lot of hype in every country in the world, and every country has their own tips and tricks, their own keywords, their own language, their own market leaders, and we can always do that analysis. But from my understanding from past events, I can tell you that every time there is like a huge tournament that all the world is like participating, we can see and expect increase in traffic in every part of the world, including the African market.
Yeah, and I can also, I want to also add that in Similarweb, you can also see the keywords, what's trending in the local language. So if it's like in Africa, if it's in no matter where in the world, you're able to analyze it and see what exactly users are searching, point of interest in the local market.
Exactly. If we have the country filter, we can even go to a deeper analysis and like to understand even better. And if not, we have some tips and tricks that can also help you understand the local market. And again, we can take it offline. Just talk to your sales manager and your account manager, and we'll be happy to help regarding that. Liana, if you can press. So now we actually checked it out, and we wanted to check who are the top 10 countries. And one of the things that I want to focus on is that we can see that Brazil is the biggest country that actually bring traffic to the website that we added to the category. Now, it makes sense, guys, like just to explain why. Brazil hosted the Copa America, and there is a huge hype, and I don't need to tell you that, in Brazil regarding everything that, relates to football, specifically when they got to the final against Argentina, which is their biggest nemesis. So we can see a big traffic coming from Brazil. We can also see a huge increase coming from Chile, and Chile just lost in the quarterfinals, but they had a pretty decent and we can say even pretty good tournament, and we can see that a good tournament actually reflects in very high amount of visits to those specific websites. If we will talk about the Euro basically section, we can see that, of course, England held the semifinal and the final matches. We all know how crazy England is regarding football. They all thought, as I said before, that it's going to come home until their hearts were broken in the final. But we can see a lot of traffic coming from there, and we can see that increase. We can also see a big increase coming from Poland, which is about 40%, and we will talk about it and see where it comes from afterwards. Okay.
Great. So after having this initial understanding of how the global industry was doing in terms of the traffic trends, we want to go deeper into our analysis and understand what people were looking for during the Euro, what were the trending topics, who was winning that traffic, and how did they acquire that traffic. So moving forward, we're still staying on that worldwide traffic level. And what we did next out of this category of betting websites that we built, we looked at those trending topics during May and June. And we wanted to see the keywords, the topics that saw the fastest month-on-month growth. And what we can see here in the top 10, the Euro 2020, it's no surprise that it was the fastest growing keyword in June versus May, but the percentages here are pretty good, pretty high. So we're looking at an over 1,300% increase in traffic. And what we did next, in addition to this top 10, we can see that in total there were 300, almost 300 keywords that were trending during that time. And in order to understand who are the websites still on a global scale that managed to get the biggest pie, the biggest share of that traffic pie, we put all of those keywords together in a nice group and started analyzing further what happened in terms of market share. What we can see here in a slightly longer period of time to really show how the traffic was growing towards June, just like we saw in those global industry trends. It is really clear to see that we have Paddy Power here in dark blue that was completely dominating these Euro 2020 related keywords. And followed by Bet365, we have some affiliate sites like Sporty Trader and Odds Checker. And in addition to those, we have the Polish side, LVBet, that connects to the fact that we just saw in the geography slide, right? That Poland showing that high increase in traffic during the Euro 2020. So these are some really interesting insights. This is really the very basic level of the analysis. In the platform, we're able to go much deeper, separate the traffic competition by SEO, PPC, and so many possibilities.
So we are delving deeper from a bird's eye view into the actual strategies to see how do the top 5 websites change their strategy toward the Euro Games. In this graph here, we see the changes, the change percentage of traffic between May to June. So the change toward the Euro in each of the marketing channels. This allows us to expose what competitors are doing and in what channels they invest, and eventually qualify if their efforts were successful or not. And now very clear to see the substantial push of LVBet Poland in every channel. They managed to increase their referral traffic by more than 3,000%. And by that, they overtook bigger players for this specific traffic source, which is a major source of traffic for gambling industry. As we can see, they even though LVBet started at the lowest traffic point in May, they got more referral traffic than Paddy Power and William Hill in June. And I think this is also very interesting from a domain perspective, since LVBet is a local website that overtook basically website with the end of .com for traffic. Also, we can see a big display push. So overall, it's really interesting to drill even farther to each one of these channels and see tactically what creatives pull attention, which referral partners they work with, top pages, generated traffic, keywords, and so on.
As you mentioned, that one of the great things is we can really understand LVBet strategy that attracts such a big audience from Poland. It's like, think about it's like playing poker and watching everybody's hands. Then you can either copy the strategy or avoid a bad strategy. We can also talk about engagement metrics. But the fact is that we can actually go and understand which referrals send the traffic to LVBet. And we can also understand where they publish their display ads and understand exactly what they did that works so well throughout the Euro. Again, I assume that that's for the Polish audience. We can also do it for different websites if needed.
Exactly. So let's do a quick mid-summary of things we learned up until now that you can already apply to be prepared for the World Cup competition. So first of all, rely on historical data to anticipate traffic trends and competitors' most successful strategies. Also, benchmark performance to the industry and identify potential threats, up-and-coming players, maybe competitors you didn't even know of. Also target fastest growing countries and identify local search intents, and we already spoke about Africa, for example, and deep dive into the marketing channel distribution of the leading websites and learn how they prepare for significant events. All right. So up until now, we talked about global traffic and search trends, top worldwide websites and their strategy. But as we know, every market has its own dynamic and every market is quite different. And so there is a need to add additional layer to it and trick strategies planned to local markets. In Similarweb, we have the option to see tactics for specific markets beside worldwide trends, as we already mentioned. So for our example today, we took a case study of the UK. Since it was basically globally among all European countries, it generated the most traffic in Euro 2020. We first wanted to see traffic to only Euro pages and not to the entire website. So with our segment analysis feature, we can slice and dice any website to understand traffic to a specific page or a specific section. So here we basically build a segment for Euro content, contain only the relevant URLs. And we did it for the top players we saw before, just focusing now on the UK market. Again, you can do it on any website and compare segments to one another to help you come with conclusions on which websites hold the best strategy for a specific section of the website. For the Euro segment in the UK, we see Paddy Power peak in volume, reaching 1.4 million visitors in this period from April to August last year. Now, in terms of engagement, we like to look at bounce rate as a good metric to qualify the traffic. So even though Paddy Power won in volume, Coral UK had the lowest bounce rate. So fewer users left the segment after visiting only one page related to Euro. Now, it's very interesting. Coral users not only find what they want and stayed engaged in the website, they also performed the fastest growth between May to June, 1,000% increase in traffic. Also, we can see that Paddy Power performed a big growth, almost 700%. So Liana, moving into you to understand what actions this website did to generate this growth.
Thank you so much, Lee. So taking it further, still with our segment analysis feature. So in addition to understanding the basic traffic trends that we've been looking at right now, what is obviously just as interesting or even more interesting is understanding how our competitors are driving traffic to those core categories that we share with them. So within the feature, we're looking at the entire selection of the channels that are driving traffic to each of the competitors. And during this period of time, well, I come from SEO, so I'll always look at SEO, but even without an SEO background, what you can really see here, what stands out is that Paddy Power, our leading website, was really dominant in the share of SEO traffic that they had. So 15% of their traffic to the Euro category came from SEO versus other competitors at around 2-3%. And given that they were so dominating in terms of global traffic, we can already understand what that means in terms of visitation from organic search. We can also spot some other kind of differences. Bet365 really relying on external referrals, those affiliates that we were mentioning earlier, as well as paid. So these are, although we haven't deep dive into those channels in this presentation, again, I want you to remind you that it is possible within the platform. Looking specifically at the SEO traffic and what this big share of organic search meant for Paddy Power in terms of visits. So if they were already dominating SEO in this competitive set in May, come June, they were really above and beyond everyone else. And what that meant in terms of absolute traffic is that in June, they had over 130K visits coming to this Euro category from SEO. And what that meant in terms of growth is almost 100% increase month on month. So June versus May.
Just think how amazing is it? We can actually take a specific segment. And by the way, it really depends on how the site is built. But as Lee said before, the other Lee, sorry, that we are slicing and dicing specific websites, and we can take that segment and understand the website strategy in order to bring traffic to that segment. So as you mentioned, like for the Euro segment, Paddy Power chose to focus on organic, and then and again, the desktop traffic came from organic, mainly from the marketing channels, while we can also see a different strategy when it comes to Bet365, and we can actually understand different strategies for a segment of the website and understand how they drove traffic.
Exactly. In addition to that, we are also able to see the entire user journey of a website's visitors, something that, again, we didn't manage to put in the presentation, but we'll be happy to show you offline. Kind of wrapping up in terms of search traffic, like we saw, Coral was growing their global traffic to this Euro category, and a lot of that came from SEO. Although their visitation was still pretty small, they did experience the fastest growth month on month. Moving forward, as we mentioned in the very beginning, we are able to drill down from the very high level data to the most granular, and that's what we did next. We wanted to move forward with our understanding of Paddy Power being the leading website and Paddy Power leading the SEO traffic. We really wanted to see what keywords did they capitalize on to get that growth. And what we've done here is taking those Euro-related keywords, including many long tails, both on desktop and on mobile. We know that you guys are heavily dependent on mobile, and that's why the mobile data is so important. So what we also know in general is that the user behavior is different on desktop and mobile, and that's what we can really see in the keyword data that we're seeing right now. So starting from desktop, during this period of time within our 5 competitors, we can see that Paddy Power is really dominating, just like we saw in those previous slides, Euro being the top keyword. When we switch the view into mobile web, it starts to look very different. First of all, the volumes are much higher, right? Because the traffic is, for the most part, on mobile. But also, really interestingly, the competition has added up considerably on mobile versus desktop. So now Paddy Power is no longer dominating on their own. They also have some friends here, Skybet, giving a nice battle on Euro 2020. Bet365 going for Euros odds. Could be that their PPC campaigns were relying on the Euros odds keyword. So really interesting to see these behaviors. And when we look at how that Euro keyword has changed over time, we can see that a big increase in June, followed by a decrease in July. But again, the behavior changes a little on mobile web, and actually not so little. So the traffic doesn't drop just as much in July, and the competition is much higher.
I think, Liana, we can also see here the need of non-branded keywords, right? Regardless the brand name, like to compete on keywords, generic. You can maybe elaborate more.
Absolutely. So, for any of the SEO managers on the call, you know that the keyword strategy needs to be really well thought out. Obviously, you need to push your brand strength with those branded keywords, but you most certainly need to make sure that you're tapping into those generic, non-branded keywords whose search volume is the highest, attract the most traffic, and that's what we're really seeing right here in this view. Moving forward, now we've been really focusing on what happened during Euro 2020. And in order to have a small piece of what is actually already happening for World Cup 22, we continued to look at Paddy Power, and we took the freshest data possible to see what are they already putting into practice in order to get possibly replicate their success during Euro 2020. 2020. A lot of years here.
2022.
2022. So what we did, and another capability within Similarweb, is looking at the top pages within any website that drive SEO traffic. So this is August data. We're seeing that Paddy Power already has a dedicated World Cup landing page. That landing page is already bringing traffic from over 300 different keywords. And when we look at the top of them, top 3 actually, they're all focused on odds. So they're already targeting traffic from those odds keywords. If we switch over to the volume, which is essentially the core metric of keyword research for an SEO manager, we can see that the volumes are still pretty low, right? Especially for the number 1 and 3. The World Cup odds, the second one, already shows a really nice search volume. Now, we have the ability to go even further in this analysis now that we've identified what keywords they have already chosen to target in these early phases prior to the World Cup. We're able to see how the user behavior changes and how the user interest changes for these keywords, and what are essentially the keywords that you should be targeting already now.
So I would just like to say something like, you guys know that World Cup is not starting only when the World Cup is starting. There's a lot of betting going on before that. So you can bet on who do you think will be the top goal scorer, the top assist player, who will going to win for sure. And we can actually start building and strategizing from, by the way, every aspect when it comes to SEO. We can understand what people ask in order to get to that website. We can go, for example, like we see here, into Paddy Power specific pages and understand how they are promoting that pages and which keywords they are actually targeting. We can check the more common or the long tail keywords that actually bring traffic. So basically, we have the ability to create a very thorough analysis regarding every marketing channel and understand what is working. And guys, the strategy is to start from now, because people already starting to bet on who is going to be the winner, and it's going to increase as time, like as we approach the World Cup specifically.
Absolutely. So elaborating on that, I wanted to look a bit further into these dominating keywords for Paddy Power and utilizing one of our newest features, which is the keyword comparison, allowing us to really drill down into any keyword basically and see side by side how those topics are comparing one next to the other. So I took the World Cup, the 2 World Cup generic keywords, put them here. I also did some additional keyword research with the keyword generator tool in the Similarweb platform, and found 2 additional variations. And if you look at the number 3 and 4, they basically include all the same words, just in different order. And it just shows how important it is to do that proper keyword research so that you're targeting all of the keywords that will be relevant for you and from which you will be able to attract traffic. Now, coming towards the end of our SEO analysis, what we're seeing for these World Cup 2022 odds keywords is that we have here, looking at the volume, we have here a couple of really interesting peaks. So first of all, April. I did some research. I'm not a sports fanatic like Lee, but I did do some research and found out that the draw for the World Cup took place in April. We have an even bigger peak in the amount of searches that were done for these keywords in June. And Lee, I will let you elaborate on that because that's just not my piece of cake.
So let's like go back for a second and understand that people actually bet upfront who is going to win the World Cup. And whenever we have the draw, so we have a bit more clarity about who is going, or at least who we think is going to qualify from the group stages and advance in the tournament and actually win in the end. Now, what happened in June actually is the list is being closed. Those are the 2 last matches and the 2 last qualifiers for the World Cup. And actually people have like a complete clarity understanding who are the teams that are going to participate, which makes sense because now they actually want to understand, okay, we had a draw. Now let's see like how the group stages is going to look like when all the teams are already in there, and not just, okay, whether who will win that match or that match. So that specific pick is here because now we really know the final list. Again, depends on what will happen with Ecuador now, but let's put that aside for a second. But now we actually know who are going to play in the World Cup.
Thank you so much. Couldn't have done it any better. When we look at the search volume and how it increases over time, we're obviously able to look at that month-on-month change here, seeing that all of these top keywords were experiencing change, and you can be sure that there are so many additional keywords that you need to be targeting.
So by that point, we already have a winning strategy, and we want to make sure our users are not cross-browsing competitor sites at the same day. And if they do, we want to act fast. So in this table, we can see the shared audience between two websites within the same day. For example, we can see that 20% of Coral visitors cross-browse Paddy Power. So 1 out of 5 users went to Paddy Power from Coral, and it happened during the Euro period. And looking at it over time, we see that there is a growing trend of users. Liana, if you can press. All right. So looking at it over time, we see that there is a really growing trend of users that go from Coral to Paddy Power up to the peak in June, and it stayed higher up even after the Euro. And this information really helps Coral marketers focus their attention to Paddy Power and pinpoint why it happened and how they should act. So tracking online behavior comes down to the most granular level of how users move between different websites. Now, working with a lot of websites in this industry, and Lee can also elaborate on that, we see that we use this table for cross-browsing behavior to also identify our shared audience between us and our potential partners and qualify this partnership, right?
So first of all, I was a betting guy. So whenever there was a World Cup, I searched for the best odds around it. Okay. So I started comparing a lot of different websites. I can assume, by the way, again, assuming that cross-visitation will actually increase while we get closer to the World Cup. But again, I'm assuming right now. But think about it. If I'm finding a better website that actually gives me better odds, then not only I will move and bet there in the World Cup, but I will also stay there afterwards. So just bear in mind that that's very important to know who they are comparing you with, and it's important to be ahead of the curve. So it's really not only for the World Cup, it will also affect afterward as we can see the cross-visitation. By the way, in that feature, we also have an amazing feature that also allows you to understand that, for example, people that go to Paddy Power will most likely to visit different websites. So we can also target that specific audience under in different places.
Fantastic. So we're now wrapping up this second part of our really tactical analysis on what happened in the UK. And what our conclusions and takeaways from this analysis is that you should be breaking down your competitor sites into the categories that you guys are sharing, so that you're able to see how they're driving that traffic into the categories and what you can learn from those strategies. If they were successful ones, maybe try applying some of those to your own. You also want to understand what are the specific keywords that drive traffic to your competitors, be it through SEO or PPC. And even more importantly, or like having that as a base and building on that base and continuing your keyword research, you want to build a really powerful keyword strategy that combines both the top keywords with the high volumes and the valuable long tails, whose, as we know, the user intent is very, very high. Last but not least, likely, or both Lees elaborated on, you want to also understand to which extent your audiences are leaking to your competitors at any given time, and how that is changing over time, whether whether that becomes a threat, or for sure it's a threat if you see your audience is leaking to a competitor, but just being able to identify what are all of those websites that are being visited by your audiences, and how does that change over time. Now we have time for some questions. So I know there's been quite a lot of data that has been shared here. So please take a moment. We have a few questions already coming up, but but we encourage you to take a moment to digest and think of what you would like to ask us in addition to that. So we have here the first question of how can you know what were the most popular games during Euro 2020? That is a really good question. And actually, Lee, would you like to take that and elaborate on that maybe?
Yes, I would be happy to do it, because once we really want to understand which match attract let's say more interest, and I would like to maybe focus on petty power. So give me a second, I will just share it again. Okay, so we'll go to the platform, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use our popular pages feature, which will show me which specific pages attract more users. Now, the great thing is that I can actually filter out only pages that are around the euro. So I would go to the search column and actually just filter out the euro pages. And you can see it, just give it a second. So now we can see actually the UEFA Euro segment, actually page, not segment, we are talking about page, actually drove a lot of traffic. And it's really interesting, because you can see that the England-Scotland, which is, let's be honest, is a very tense game between England and Scotland in the Euro, attract huge amount of volume, because we can see that this is like 0.56% of the traffic that went to the whole page. And then we can see England-Germany, if I'm not mistaken, it was the last 16 game. And then we can see the final, Italy versus England, which actually was a very disappointing match, as we stated before. England, Croatia, and Czech Republic, they were both like the group stages against England. And we can also see that, like, surprisingly, England, Denmark is the 7th place. That was the semi-final, if I recall correctly. Again, don't catch me on my word. It's like, that's what I recall about England matches. But I remember that was a big hype around those specific matches. And because Petty Power is mainly like England-based site, then we can see that the top match that drove interest are actually the games that England has participated on. So one of the great things is that, again, we can do it for a lot of different websites, but when it comes to Petty Power, we can see that England drove the most interest around it. We can also see that number 9, for example, we can see Italy versus Spain. Okay, so that's also like a game that brought a lot of interest around the England people.
That's amazing. And in
one more thing, sorry, I just want to say that we can also see, by the way, if they promoted it. So just pressing on the plus button next to, let's say the number 1, we can see if there is the UTM links, and we can see that if there was like promotion that actually, and campaigns, sorry, not promotion, campaigns that actually brought traffic to that specific page. So that's also something that we can understand how they acted in order to bring traffic to each and every page we can see here.
Thank you so much, Lee. We have another question on content. So what are the content pillars for the World Cup? That is my favorite question. So I'm happy to take that one, and guys, feel free to elaborate as well. Like I mentioned previously, the keyword research is all about being versatile and having a good combination of those very high volume keywords, but that are also very, very competitive. And you need to have a very strong site in order to be able to get a lot of traffic from those high volume keywords. As a smaller player in your market, you know that you also need to rely on those long tails, keyword phrases, a lot of the variations that are around the actual topic. So given that we're in the platform, I'm going to take you through one of just a quick tour on some of the keyword capabilities that we have. So right now we're focusing on Paddy Power only. We're looking at their top pages and what were those big games that were getting traction to their website. But when it comes to content, we have an entire section dedicated for content research, building that right strategy, and understanding what are the keywords that you should be targeting. So going directly to SEO, this section applies also for any, product managers, those who are really thinking of what is the next direction. And one of my favorite features in the entire platform is the keyword generator that allows us to really map out an entire topic in terms of the keywords, their volume, etc. So at this point of time, I'm interested in the World Cup. So we can look for World Cup to begin with. We can also already see what are some of the additional keywords that people have been looking for, but we'll start with the World Cup. We're looking at worldwide data that is available also on desktop and mobile. We'll give it a second to load because having done this research already, I know that there are many, many keywords on this list. All right, so in the last 3 months only, nearly 7,000 keywords were out there that people were looking for around World Cup. And now that we went with this very, very generic keyword, we have here some World Cups that are not necessarily, relevant for us, but already in the top 10, we can definitely see the World Cup this year being on top of everyone's minds. And the first instance that we're seeing here is that aggregated search volume for the past year, as well as how it is changing month on month. And like we saw for those World Cup odds keywords that Paddy Power is already targeting, we saw that peak in April in the search volume. We saw that even bigger peak in June. So that same peak in the user interest obviously applies also to these big keywords. So this is really the starting point. We have many ways to filter this view. We can go by World Cup 2022 alone. We can look for odds keywords. Basically any aspect of the World Cup that you want to tackle in terms of content and SEO and PPC traffic, this is your go-to place, and we'd be really happy to take you on a tour and see what's possible.
Thanks, Liana. So we have the last question. Actually, we already got a lot of warm words. So thank you for everyone. So the last question was, I think it's a really good way to summarize and finish our webinar. It was about who should I contact with in order to have training on the platform. So at the end of this presentation, we will share with you the deck. We'll share with all of the participants. Also, this webinar is recorded. And alongside this email that you will receive, you will have our own emails. You will have the client services email, so you can contact us, and we will be happy to have trainings on the platform to walk you through the different features and what you can do with the data. So this is it, unless we have another question. I don't think so.
I just want to say something, guys. The World Cup is around the corner. There is, give or take, about 2 months. We need to start strategizing, and people are starting to search for places to go and place bets from today, and actually where they're going to view and where they're going to gamble as the World Cup will start. So we need to strategize in advance. So be prepared, understand what's worked, understand historically what people did in order to get to those websites. We will be glad to help, and I'm sure that your account manager or sales person will be glad to help and jump on a call and strategize with you, and even focus on a specific country that will help you actually win the local market. So we are here for you. Let us help and actually take data-driven decision and increase the amount of traffic that you guys will get. And I'm sure that will also have an effect when the World Cup will finish, because this traffic will stay at your website.
Thank you all very much. We'd love to hear some comments from you via email. Again, thank you. Have a great day.